On December 13, the Science Journal reported that the US and China extended their scientific treaty despite rising tensions. Notably, this was done in the final days of the Biden administration. First, let's briefly discuss the US-China Science and Technology Agreement, abbreviated as STA. This treaty was first signed in 1979 during the presidency of US President Jimmy Carter and Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping. It is one of the first agreements that established a foundation for cooperation between the two nations following the normalization of diplomatic relations in 1978. The agreement aims to promote scientific and technological cooperation between the two countries in areas of mutual interest, supporting economic and social development and basic scientific research. Thanks to this treaty, China can access advanced technologies such as renewable energy, medicine, space exploration, and information technology. The knowledge gained from collaborative projects has helped China upgrade its education, research, and domestic development systems in science and technology. Cooperation with leading U.S. organizations and scientists has allowed Beijing to shorten research timelines, especially in areas it has only recently begun developing, such as artificial intelligence, AI, biotechnology, and renewable energy. China has built a massive data repository that supports domestic research and development programs by sharing data and research information. Advanced technologies have helped China develop domestic products, strengthening its position in the industrial and military sectors. China has dramatically benefited from gene research, biotechnology, and new drug development. Joint research on the SARS and COVID-19 pandemics has given China access to advanced medical methods. Collaborative renewable energy and environmental protection projects have also helped Beijing take the lead in solar panel and wind energy production while improving pollution control measures. China has also used the agreement to portray itself as capable of international scientific cooperation, while reducing criticisms of its behavior in other areas, such as trade or human rights. The deal has helped China improve its diplomacy with the U.S. during times of tension, while also using it to gain concessions from the U.S. in other areas. In particular, some technologies developed within the framework of scientific cooperation could be used for military or strategic purposes, including artificial intelligence, network technology, and advanced materials. China has leveraged the scientific achievements from the cooperation to support strategic industries, thereby driving economic growth and improving international competitiveness. China has used this scientific and technological agreement to achieve significant benefits. These benefits have played an important role in Beijing's rise as a global science and technology powerhouse. China has been the primary beneficiary of the agreement due to its restrictive approach to domestic data and information, while the U.S. is more open about sharing scientific knowledge. Among these, certain areas of cooperation could involve dual-use technologies, leading to the risk of technology transfer for China's military purposes. Like in the past, Beijing could continue to use scientific cooperation as a cover to access and steal sensitive technology or data from the U.S. So why, at this point, has the Biden administration extended the treaty for another 5 years? President Biden may see the agreement extension as a way to keep China in check, creating opportunities to monitor and supervise Beijing's scientific activities. The new deal is expected to include stricter data sharing and dispute resolution provisions. This could help the U.S. mitigate risks from China's abuses in the context of geopolitical competition. Scientific cooperation is among the least controversial areas, helping maintain a communication channel between the two powers. This might be the case in theory, but the treaty's extension could be more practical and be seen as a harmful move for several reasons. First, the U.S. has repeatedly accused China of using the agreement to gain access to advanced technologies without paying a price. Areas such as artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and space technology have become significant concerns due to their military application potential. Although the U.S. attempts to tighten controls, the nature of the American scientific and technological system encourages sharing and transparency, which China may continue to exploit. While the U.S. freely shares data and technology, China often restricts American scientists' access to their projects. This creates an imbalanced relationship. A more powerful China in science and technology weakens America's position and accelerates the global shift of power. This is particularly dangerous, as China has shown that it is willing to use technology for economic, military, and geopolitical purposes to confront the U.S. Now, an extension will not help the U.S. control China. On the contrary, the agreement could become a tool for Beijing to strengthen its power by exploiting America's open scientific system. Even with stricter provisions in the New Deal, enforcing and monitoring these terms is difficult, especially since Beijing has a history of breaching commitments. Therefore, extending the treaty in the current context could leave the U.S. in a passive position, continuing to provide China with benefits without any protective mechanisms. If the intention behind the move is to keep an open dialogue with Beijing, it has yet to achieve the desired effect. China has no incentive to make concessions or de-escalate tensions merely because of scientific cooperation. This is why the decision has faced criticism from lawmakers and experts, particularly those in opposition. They may view it as a weak stance toward Beijing, even undermining the long-term interests of the U.S. Another controversial action is that, on December 13, the New York Post reported that President Biden had pardoned Chinese spies convicted of stealing U.S. technology secrets, even though both individuals had been convicted of espionage. One of them had even been convicted of possessing over 47,000 child pornography images, while a PhD student at Southern Methodist University in Dallas in 2021. The pardon of these individuals has sparked significant controversy and raised questions about President Biden's motives. Some argue this action could weaken national security and send the wrong message about handling espionage and serious crimes. However, the Biden administration emphasizes that the prisoner exchange was aimed at rescuing American citizens unjustly detained in China and should not be viewed as a concession on national security. The pardon of spies who had previously stolen U.S. technology, causing significant damage to national security, is now explained as not a concession. This is difficult to justify. Xi Jinping arranges strategies to counter Trump. The world media has been discussing a rare move by China in recent days, its policy of monetary easing. This most considerable easing in 14 years could just be the beginning as Beijing prepares for the high tariffs that Trump is likely to impose shortly. Monetary easing is an economic policy implemented by central banks to increase money circulation and stimulate growth when the economy slows down or weakens. Monetary easing can generally be carried out in the following ways. Lowering the policy interest rate. This is the rate at which commercial banks borrow from the central bank. Commercial banks also lower lending rates when interest rates are reduced, making borrowing cheaper, which encourages businesses to invest and consumers to spend. Injecting more money into the market. The central bank can use financial tools like buying government bonds or securities, thus providing more liquidity to commercial banks. Lowering the reserve requirement ratio. Commercial banks must hold less money at the central bank, giving them more capital to lend out. Buying financial assets mainly aims to increase liquidity and support the economic system. The primary purpose of this policy is to stimulate the economy when it is weakening. China's economy is indeed facing the lowest growth in decades, caused by the collapse of the real estate sector, with major companies like Evergrande and Country Garden, a decline in domestic consumption. Exports decreased due to trade tensions and competition from countries like Vietnam and India. Therefore, monetary easing lowers interest rates, increases the money supply, and promotes investment and consumer spending to support growth. Before officially taking office, President-elect Donald Trump announced massive tariffs on Chinese goods. This would heavily affect Chinese exporters. Beijing needed to ease its monetary policy to support export businesses. This policy helps reduce capital costs, support enterprises in maintaining production, and minimize the impact of tariffs in trade wars. China has often kept the yuan weak to promote exports. However, monetary easing within the country helps stabilize the exchange rate and prevent capital outflows or the decline of market confidence. Notably, China's economy faces a massive public and private debt burden. Monetary easing reduces debt costs, helping local governments and private businesses resolve liquidity issues. The core of this policy is to stimulate the domestic economy, indirectly supporting export businesses so they can withstand the new tariffs from the U.S. Beijing knows a weak economy could lead to high unemployment, reduced public trust, and social instability. Monetary easing is a measure to stabilize market sentiment and ensure the economy does not fall into crisis. They must build muscular internal strength to cope with America's protectionist policies. This is part of Trump's strategy to protect the economy from economic attacks. Beijing's swift adoption of the most substantial monetary easing policy in 14 years clearly shows Xi Jinping's concerns about Donald Trump's return to the White House. Beijing vividly remembers the trade war with Trump during his previous term. At that time, the trade war caused significant damage to China. The U.S. imposed tariffs worth over $360 billion on Chinese exports. Many U.S. companies shifted their supply chains to countries like Vietnam, India, or Mexico. In this situation, China had to make concessions and sign the Phase 1 trade agreement, committing to purchasing more U.S. goods and changing some policies. Xi Jinping is concerned that Trump will use even tougher economic measures, not only tariffs, but possibly also imposing technology sanctions, such as banning Huawei, restricting AI chip exports, and measures targeting the financial sector. These concerns increase the fear of losing its global economic position. Under Trump, the U.S. pushed policies to reduce dependency on China. This made China worry that its position as the world's factory would be threatened. By easing monetary policy, Beijing wants to show the world that it still controls the economy to retain international investors and maintain its economic position. Overall, monetary easing can help alleviate economic pressure in the short term and create a more favorable environment for China to cope with the new tariffs